This debate is unbelievably frustrating. It is genuinely a test of endurance. So this will be painful. The main topic of debate seems to be around the Soviet invasion of Poland, around the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact that was signed between the Soviets and the Germans, which was an agreement signed so that the Nazis and the Soviets could split up Poland amongst themselves. Not only Poland though, the Soviets also got Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. This was a non-aggression pact, and also it included a bunch of trade benefits for the Germans that they used up until eventually they turned on the Soviets and invaded them. I think it was a terrible decision that the Soviets made. I think it protected the Nazi flank during the invasion. It made the Nazi invasion of Poland easier. The handover of German communists to the German government, who they then killed in the Holocaust, was a massive, massive mistake. Their sending of resources over to the Germans up until their invasion helped finance and fund the German war machine. I think that was a mistake, and they shouldn't have done that. That isn't to say that the Allies didn't make mistakes by, appeasing Hitler up until his invasion of Poland, but past the invasion of Poland, it was the Soviets enabling Hitler. Anyway, let's continue. Let's watch.
How you doing, buddy?
Hello?
Hey.
Hello? Oh, I have the stream open, sorry.
Oh, are you Eastern European?
No, I'm not. Why?
Where are you from?
Do you know where I'm from? What do you mean?
I don't remember. I don't remember where everybody's from.
Brazil.
Oh, basically Eastern European. Okay. Well, what's up?
Yeah, so yeah, about that tweet that you posted earlier.
Yeah?
You said that the Soviet Union had a alliance with Nazi Germany.
Yeah, I mean, I think so.
Am I reading this?
Yeah, I basically, yeah, I think so, yeah.
Basically, yeah. So, would you consider the Munich Agreement and all the other military treaties that were done with Western Europe an alliance also, or not?
I don't know. I'd have to read up more on those in the, I guess. For the Munich Agreement, do you think that had Germany not gone a more expensive route, don't you think it would have been like a relatively chill setting between the rest of Europe and Germany, or no?
I believe that giving that to them, right, giving the territory to them, was useful to give them time if they were preparing for a war. But that's not the case, right? But it is the case.
No, but I'm saying that, like,
Molotov-Ribbentrop.
Well, yeah, but like, don't you think that, like, for the Munich Agreement, there's a difference between that and Molotov-Ribbentrop, in that it's not like we were splitting countries up with Germany, right, and co-occupying them with Germany. No.
Yeah, except that's not what Molotov-Ribbentrop was, right? Molotov-Ribbentrop was a non-aggression pact, right?
My understanding is they were basically splitting Poland between themselves. Not true?
If there was a war between Germany and Poland, right? My point is that taking Poland is not the same during Molotov-Ribbentrop. Is not the same as splitting Sudetenland, right?
I mean, like, arguably it's worse. Because when you look at the Munich Agreement and the other agreements that the Allies signed, it wasn't, okay, we'll take half the country, you take the other half when everything kicks off. It was, in order to avoid the tragedy of war, yes, you can have this, yes, you can have that. It was appeasement. It was wrong in its own way. But in the Munich Agreement, there was never like, okay, this, you'll get all of this stuff. You'll get to annex all this territory, the Sudetenland, but also we get the rest of Czechoslovakia. It's going to be a British that wasn't part of the agreement. That would only make the Munich Agreement like 10 times worse.
It's nowhere near.
It was also not in they also wouldn't evolve to a point where we were sending the Germans like people to get killed in the hall. Whatever. I don't want to get into the German communist deportations, but let's continue.
Same. One is retaking land that was part of the Soviet Union in Ukraine, right? And the other is Britain, France, and Italy giving away Czechoslovakia, right?
Okay, so the treaty of the MR Pact, I'm not going to pronounce every time. The treaty defined the borders of the Soviet German spheres of influence across Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, and Finland.
That's part of the secret protocol, right? That's if there was a conflict in those regions, right? If one of the sides decided to invade.
So what do you think was going to happen post, let's say Germany solves everything on the Western Front, stops invading, or they beat everybody? What do you think is happening after that with Germany and the Soviet Union?
That question doesn't make sense because they weren't fighting a war, right?
But let's say that World War II erupts. Okay, let's say that they go on. Let's say Germany wins.
Yeah, but we need the context, right? Because World War II happened after Molotov-Ribbentrop, and Molotov-Ribbentrop happened after the Munich Agreement and all the other military treaties, right? Between Britain, between France, Italy, etc., and Germany, right? Molotov-Ribbentrop happened after those military treaties.
Yeah, but what caused
One second. It happened after the treaties.
But Destiny
it happened
looks better with
after
Messi here.
the annexation of parts of Czechoslovakia, and it happened after the Soviet Union offered a anti-Nazi military alliance to the West. Right? They refused the alliance, and then only after that they signed the same treaty that other Western countries also did it, right?
What caused?
Except that.
I know you don't.
Except that, of course.
This is my understanding.
They had land agreements. They had land agreements because Britain doesn't share borders with Germany, right? So they don't need one.
Okay, this is my understanding. Okay, the MR Pact existed to help the Soviet Union and Nazi Germany essentially define the borders between their territories. And the only thing that caused that agreement to lapse was when Germany invaded the Soviet Union. Had Germany not invaded the Soviet Union, that pact probably would have stayed in place and then been iterated on in the future.
Sure.
Do you think that's true or do you think that's false?
Iterated is a funny word because the secret protocols, which are the part that you're referring to when you say defining the borders and splitting Poland, they're not, we're gonna invade this place and we're gonna do this. Is if there's a conflict by one of the parties, those were the borders, right? So because Molotov-Ribbentrop, as outlined by the earlier points that I made, it served as a way for them to buy time, right? They needed to industrialize.
Wait, as a way for who to buy time?
The Soviet Union. They knew that war with Germany, as the other countries also knew, was inevitable. The Germans openly said that they wanted to.
What I don't like about this explanation, by the way, is I don't think that it was purely to buy time. I think that's a partial explanation. But I think it was also for their own benefit that Stalin wanted to occupy large swaths of Poland. Stalin wanted to occupy Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. These were his long-term imperial ambitions, that he wanted to remove the sovereignty of these peoples and nation states. And those people wanted to be independent because way past World War II, there were guerrilla movements in Ukraine. There were guerrilla movements in Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, the Forest Brothers. I don't want to really get into it right now. But he wanted his empire. And so when World War II kicked off, the idea that he was just buying time and that's simply it doesn't really make any sense to me. Because how much more difficult do you think those early stages of the war would be if instead of Hitler fighting the Polish who were getting flanked by the Soviets, they were fighting the Polish who were not getting flanked by the Soviets, and then the French and the British and possibly the Soviets who would join shortly after in response to German imperial aggression into Poland. I don't think that the war would have lasted as long as it did. I think it might have been a lot more difficult for the Germans to fight the Polish, the Soviets, the British, and the French at once. But the Soviets chose imperial expansion, chose territory grabs in collaboration with the German government at the time over fighting with the Polish, who they had already previous military and like border scuffles with in the past. Calling it a border scuffle is underplaying it. They had like full wars with the Polish government, the newly independent Polish government, who were very anti-communist.
Expand eastward. They wanted to enslave the Slav people, right?
I don't believe that's true, but I would have to go back.
What part of that?
I don't think the Soviet Union considered Germany invading them to be an inevitability.
They did, but I don't know what to respond to that.
How prepared was the Soviet Union for the German invasion?
They had a prediction. They had a schedule, right, for during the industrialization, for it to happen in 1943, I believe, and it happened in 1941. They were miscalculated by 2 years. They industrialized the country, right, and then they were invaded 2 years prior to the schedule that they had.
Okay, well, that sure would have been an interesting counterfactual to see, but from my point of view, an agreement existed between the Nazis and the Soviets to divide territory in Europe up until the Germans canceled it by invading the Soviet Union. So
that is literally not true, because it wasn't.
That is true, by the way. I mean, that's what the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact was about. It was a non-aggression pact that secret, even though the non-aggression pact was public, secretly included the Soviets getting Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and half of Poland.
An agreement to split the territory, right? It was a non-aggression pact, and the point of the secret protocol was to not let Germany advance near the Soviet Union, was to give a buffer zone.
Okay, you can try to explain it that way, but the result of it was them splitting up half of Poland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. Why, by the way, why would they need the Baltic states if they were just scared of the Germans taking the rest of Poland? Why not? Well, why would they need the Baltic states as well? Just like a question.
To the Soviet Union, right?
Aren't you just restating what I'm saying in other words?
No, because you make it seem like if they didn't invade the Soviet Union, they were just going to keep the secret protocols and somehow.
Well, no. Of course, if the Germans didn't invade, then it would be much more difficult for the Soviets to invade Poland, and they probably wouldn't have done it. But it was done with the idea that eventually the Germans would probably invade Poland, and if they did, then they would get to gobble up all this territory instead of working against the German invasion of Poland, which the Soviets had no interest in, and instead assisted in the German invasion of Poland. What he's doing right now by saying, well, it wasn't an agreement to split up the country, it was an agreement to divide the country if it was invaded. This is a distinction without a difference. This is just all word games.
All cooperate, like annex the rest, right? Not only Poland, but the other Eastern European countries. That's historical. It didn't happen. And
wait, hold on. Wait. What didn't happen? I don't understand. So, was it not the case that Germany and the Soviet Union like invaded Poland at the same time and had an agreement on who would occupy which parts of the country?
I'm being pedantic, but no, it's not true that they invaded at the same time. What happened was that Germany invaded, and then because of the secret protocol, the Soviet Union went there and to retake the territory that was part of Ukraine, and then also to take the territory that was in the secret protocol, right? They didn't close to, we're gonna just invade Poland. They just took the opportunity because it was part of the agreement, right?
Okay, so it sounds Poland. Like you're using a whole bunch.
It wasn't the same date.
Okay.
It wasn't the same date.
Okay.
What you just said is not true.
My bad. Okay, so it was 2 weeks later. My bad. So it was the 1st of September 1939 was when Germany invaded, and then the Soviet invaded on the 17th of September. Okay.
Yeah, the point is that.
So it sounds like you're using a whole.
Coordinated. It wasn't coordinated, right? There's no document showing this.
Okay, sure. There was no coordination on when they would invade, but there was a treaty in place defining who would own which parts of the country.
If there was a conflict in the region, yes, of course.
Do you think if we signed up like a secret document with Israel that stated that if there was ever a war between Israel and Iran, we would get half of Iran, and also we would also get Pakistan and all these other countries under our, it's like countries, it's not even like, we're not even talking about only Iran, we're also talking about other countries that would now be under our control, and that we would specifically deport anybody to the Israelis that the Israelis just didn't like politically and wanted to do away with. Like you can say that, oh, this was just preparing if something like that was going to happen. but the intention was that when the Germans kicked off the war, the Soviets would garner as much as they could, then sit back, let the rest of Europe be chewed up. And they would assist in Germany in doing that by collaborating with them and sending them the resources to do it. That is not defensible. That is not a good thing. That is choosing themselves over the rest of Europe, and it went to back to bite them in the ass.
Okay,
Because
and they literally
the
invaded
point-
the day after the MR Pact was approved. After the invasion, the new borders between the two countries was confirmed by the supplementary protocol of the German-Soviet Frontier Treaty. How is
Yeah.
this not like two countries splitting a country?
How does this contradict anything that I said?
Well, it doesn't contradict anything you said, but you're not contradicting anything I said. You're just saying what I said in nicer language.
I did actually, because you're making it seem that it's a agreement to split the countries. It's not true. It's a agreement to split the countries if one side invades. And
He just said, it's not an agreement to split the countries. It's an agreement to split the countries.
the side that invaded was Nazi Germany, right?
Okay. I'll give you that. Okay, you're right. It wasn't an agreement to split the countries.
Of course I'm right.
It was an agreement that if they invaded the countries, they would split the countries.
No, not they. No, not they. If one part did it.
Oh yeah, but then the Soviets did invade. They had to move their troops in to invade. So the Soviets invaded Poland too, and they killed Polish soldiers.
The other part would. Yeah, of course. Did you read the pact at least, or at least the secret protocols, please? Have you ever read
all the Wikipedia's of it? This is a long time ago. I haven't argued with Tankies in a long time.
Yeah, that's.
But I mean, like,
yeah.
you can tell me anything is wrong. I mean, like, it seems like soon after the pact, Germany invaded Poland on the 1st of September 1939. Soviet leader
really?
Joseph Stalin ordered the Soviet invasion of Poland on the 17th of September.
Yeah, no shit,
this was
because
one day after the Supreme Soviet of the Soviet Union had approved the MR Pact. After the invasions, the new border between the two countries was confirmed by the supplementary protocol of the German-Soviet Frontier Treaty.
Yeah. So again, they just took the part that was in the secret protocol. You can't make the conflation between Nazi Germany invading and taking Poland and the Soviet Union taking the buffer zone between them and the new borders of would be the Nazi Germany, right? Also, one thing that no one mentions, the regions that the Soviet Union took were taken also by Poland during the Soviet-Polish War, right? Right after the revolution.
Is this supposed to be a justification for the Soviet Union to take those territories back?
It's not a justification to invade the whole of Poland, but of course it is justified to take parts back of Ukraine, right? From Poland.
How did the Soviets even originally come under possession of that territory? That's kind of weird to say. You're justified to take territory back.
What do you mean? They were the succession state of the Russian Empire, right?
Yeah, but I mean, like, to say that, like, because do you think that if you keep interrupting me, it makes you correct?
No.
Okay. Yeah, because you've talked like 90% of the time. Okay. So just because somebody has conquered territory at some point in time doesn't give you like a permanent hold on that territory and right to conquer it indefinitely into the future. Now, if you want to, you can. I guess you can make that argument.
No, Italy was a successor state to the Roman Empire. So when they invaded all that territory, when they invaded Greece, when you really think about it, was it really unjustified? Come on, guy.
Okay, but at the end of the day, the MR Pact existed. Territory was essentially decided that if we invade, we're going to take this part and you can have that part. Nothing you're saying is substantially different than what I said before, other than you like saying, well, they're not jointly invading territory, but if they both happen to invade a territory, they've agreed who will own which parts.
That was very sneaky. I'm not saying that they can hold forever the territory, right? I'm saying that they had more claim to the territory than Poland because they were the succession state to the Russian Empire, and it was
the Soviet Union had more claim to Poland than the Polish government. What under whose authority? Under what justification? It is certain the Polish people certainly didn't want the Soviets there. So it wasn't under the authority of, the people of Poland. So what authority? The authority of communism. They deserve to be what authority? What gave them more of a right to be in Poland than the Polish government? The legislative body of the Polish people. As flawed as it was.
was part of Ukraine and therefore the Russian Empire for longer than Poland, right?
Okay, so I think now he's talking about, well, there was other parts of Poland that had been part of Ukraine, therefore, but they didn't just take parts of Poland that are part of Ukraine. They took parts of Poland that were just like a part of modern day Poland too. And even if they did just take parts of Poland that were once part of Ukraine, they're taking just back imperial holdings, which is still immoral, it's still wrong.
Took the territory during the Polish-Soviet War. It was part of the Russian Empire, and then it was part of the Soviet Union.
Sure, I don't know if that's true or not, and that's
So
great.
not,
but the reality is
it
Germany
is.
allowed that. It doesn't matter because it's not relevant to what we're talking about. Germany allowed the Soviets to hold. It's not at all. Germany allowed Nazi Germany allowed the Soviets to hold that because they agreed which parts of the territory they would have if they both invaded the country.
No, that's not true. If there was a conflict in the region and one side invaded, it's not true that they coordinated to invade Poland.
I didn't say they.
other...
Hold on. I didn't say they coordinated to invade, but I said that if they both happen to invade a country, they have a predefined border set on who gets to own what.
Well,
If I went up to a mugger who is known to mug people, as Hitler was known to invade countries, right? I go up to the mugger and I say, look, okay, I'm not saying you're gonna mug him. I'm not saying you're not gonna mug him. But if you mug Steve, I think I deserve all the jewelry. And not only will I get all the jewelry, but I'll also mug Larry, Lasso, and Laurel. I'm sorry, not great names. I'm also gonna mug these other people who you're not mugging. It's only Latvia, Lithuania. Come on, can we just think? Can we just think for a little bit? This logic doesn't hold up.
Yeah, what you're missing is that it's not both invading, right?
I'm not. You're so hung. No. You're trying to win on the dumbest technicality in the world. I'm not saying they're launching a joint invasion, like they're click and dragging all their troops in StarCraft 2 and right clicking at the same time. But they have a map saying if we invade, we're gonna take this part, and if you guys want to invade later, whatever, you're gonna have that part. But the borders post invasion are gonna be clearly defined. That's what the MR Pact was. Sure.
Yeah, but I'm gonna be super anal about this. I don't like the we, the terminology you're using. We invade, right? Say. If the Soviets invade or if Nazi Germany invade, that's the agreement, right? Because when you say if we invade, you're kind of making it seem like it's a plan, right? They're invading together. Oh, it's not a joint invasion.
You can technicality away all you want. Yeah, you can technicality away. Yeah, that's great. Right? You can technicality away all you want. The reality is, at the end of the day, the Soviet Unions were on their knees sucking Nazi dick, and they want a bunch of credit. They want a bunch of credit for getting invaded by Germany afterwards, which terminated the pact that they had to split territory, and then they got fucking slaughtered and murdered like fucking 10 soldiers to 1 for Germany. And as they're getting raped all throughout the fucking western part of the Russian Empire, then they're like, oh, well, look at how much we're contributing. That is the most retarded fuck line I've ever heard in my entire fucking life.
The Russian Empire did not exist. The Soviet Union was the...
Was that a response to any... The Russian Empire did not exist. How is that responding to anything Destiny said? I'm sorry.
Successor state to the Russian Empire. Doesn't make any sense. They invaded Ukraine.
I don't care. Why should I care if they're the successor state to the Russian Empire? Okay? There's a lot of states that claim to be the successor state to the Roman Empire. The modern Russian government actually is one of the governments that semi-claims to be the heir to like the Roman government. There are other governments that claim it too. Does that mean they would have a right to go invade Greece and in favor of Rome and the Roman claim to the... No, it doesn't. So I don't know what we're talking about this.
They invaded Belarus and they invaded Russia, right?
If the Russian Empire had territorial holdings in Africa, and actually, one second, I think they tried to get territorial holdings in Africa. I don't think they did. But if they did have territorial holdings in Africa, would it be okay for the Soviets in the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact be like, okay, we get Papua New Guinea. We get to make the People's Republic of Papua New Guinea in negotiations.
Right? Invade.
Nothing, literally nothing. You can fight on every technicality you want, but all you're doing is reinforcing my story. Yeah,
I'm not actually.
You are. The reality is Germany invaded the Soviet Union. Germany invaded. They fought as Germans were raping them, having their whole fucking cities torched, pushing them back into Germany.
Cruise Missile, I'm sorry. These are getting out of hand real quick. Cruise Missile, thank you so much for the primer. Appreciate it.
Territory. But after all of that expires and they got invaded, then that was the ceasing of of their treaty was after Germany invaded.
Yeah, do you
at
understand?
the end of all of, hold on, no, at the end of all
Oh
of
my
that,
God.
at the end, don't, oh my God, you've talked like 90% of the time on and all you're doing
Okay,
is
go
making
ahead.
technicalities
Oh, go
that
ahead.
aren't even contradicting what I'm saying.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
at the end of all of this, to be like, oh, well, Americans, you barely get credit for fucking Normandy, you barely get credit for that invasion, because what really happened, because what, oh, I'm sorry, I thought it was my turn to talk, my bad.
Okay,
So
yeah,
at the
go
end,
ahead.
to be like, look at how much
ahead.
Russia contributed. Russia should get all the credit because they lost most of the people. Russia lost a lot of people because they suck shit, and they lost people to somebody that they had fucking drawn up a fucking treaty with. Fuck them. Why would you give them more credit than the United States in that case? That's insane, and that's before we even get into Lend-Lease or anything like that. That's crazy.
Okay, now clip it and put it on TikTok. You're not contradicting anything that I said. You're also
then we
just
agree on everything.
lying.
Cool.
Because you're calling Molotov-Ribbentrop an alliance, and you're ignoring the Munich Agreement. You're ignoring the non-aggression pact that Italy, that Lithuania.
Why would you compare
Britain,
Why do you think the Munich Agreement is comparable?
Because if you're calling the non-aggression pact Molotov-Ribbentrop between Nazi Germany and
Did the Munich
Soviet Union,
Agreement
an alliance.
did the Munich Agreement was that also giving land to other European countries?
does it have to?
That's the whole point of the MR Pact. It wasn't just delegating territory.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't the entire point. The entire point was.
And now we find on the technicalities again. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, you're being autistic. My point is that.
Nah, you're the one. Everything I'm saying is right. Yeah.
The things that it's not actually.
Okay.
The things that compromise the Munich Agreement, plus the military treaties, the non-aggression pacts that Britain, France, Lithuania, Italy, etc. did. Those agreements plus the Munich Pact is practically the same thing as Molotov-Ribbentrop, and they happened before Molotov-Ribbentrop, right? Molotov-Ribbentrop happened after the Munich Agreement, after the military treaties between Western countries and Nazi Germany.
Oh my God, you just ramble on the dumbest shit. Okay, I'm wrong. I'm telling you, I'm wrong. Listen, I agree.
It happened after the military alliance that Stalin offered to Western Europe.
Okay, I know you have a lot. You don't. Okay, right? Every single time you answer a question, it doesn't mean you have to give out every single factoid that you happen to know about European history, right?
Because you're just denying.
No. I'm not denying anything. I'm trying to get one word in. Okay, I understand. I know that you're really excited to give every factoid. Okay.
Go ahead.
So my question is, okay, because I was unaware of this. Okay, my knowledge here is very limited. For the Munich Agreement, then, because I forgot. Besides Germany annexing territory, what other European countries were getting territory from the Munich Agreement? Can you remind me?
I can remind you. Britain didn't get any territory. Italy didn't get territory.
Oh.
What the fuck is your point?
Oh, so you're saying the Munich Agreement isn't anything like the MR Pact then? It's...
No, I'm saying that if you consider the MR Pact an alliance, you also have to consider the other pacts an alliance.
Why?
Because it's the same type of agreement, and the part that you...
I mean, both of them are bad. I think the Munich Agreement was bad. And I think the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact was bad. But the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact was worse for the fact, and there's a distinction there you need to make, that the Soviets made the deal in order so they could get territory themselves. Like, for example, again, and this will be the main point I'll make. If it was just about, even splitting up Poland was wrong. But if it was just about, well, we needed to buy time, why did they have to annex Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania then? Why did they have to do that? What was the purpose of that? Why couldn't they have avoided annexing them? It was just such a blatant land grab. They were both wrong. They were wrong for different reasons, though. The first, the Munich Agreement was wrong because it was too appeasing to Germany and what German demands were in annexing this territory. The Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact was bad because it was a deal with the devil, so they could benefit themselves, and that it ended up biting them in the ass later.
It's not the same type of agreement.
Yeah, but let me just explain how it is.
You just explained 20 times. You're about to repeat the same shit you said before.
Yeah, but you're just you're just denying. Oh, it's not the same agreement. You're not giving an actual argument for why it's not. I'm saying it is because it's a non-aggression pact, and the part that is different between the agreements and Molotov-Ribbentrop is the secret protocol. But the secret protocol has an analog with Sudetenland, right? It has an analog with the Munich Agreement. Does not?
And that they're both written on paper?
No, that it gives Nazi Germany land, right?
Go ahead. there's two parts to that MR Pact. The Munich Agreement was just giving Germany part of Czechoslovakia or whatever the fuck, or the Czechoslovakia. I don't even know. What the fuck it's
But
just the MR Pact was saying.
Yeah, just that.
The MR Pact was saying two different countries could have borders with each other across other conquered territory. That's different than the Munich Agreement.
Yeah. I don't think you realize that there's more legitimacy to Molotov-Ribbentrop because they shared they would.
Dude, it is unbelievably annoying to see him go like to like mock Destiny stuttering or like falling over his words before then immediately going it's come on, man, you can't mock him and then do the same thing.
Share a border with Germany if they annex the entirety, right? So it's clearly to buy time, and it's clearly
it's clearly to buy time. Sources cited. Why? Because they happen to get invaded and get fucking raped by Nazis for fucking how many years?
Nice argument. That's not true. They knew that war was imminent. They knew
if they knew war was imminent, then why did they lose half their shit in like fucking 2 weeks? What do you mean they knew war was imminent?
What do you mean? What? They didn't have equipment.
Why wouldn't they have equipment if they knew war was imminent? You just told me that they were 2 years off of their estimation.
Because the Russian Empire was dirt poor. They needed industrialization. And, have you ever looked at the history book?
Why didn't they come? I haven't looked at the history book. No. Why didn't they go beg the United States?
Man, it would probably be a lot easier if Poland, the Soviet Union, France, and the United Kingdom could have fought Germany all at once at the start of the war. That would have been cool.
And they go beg the United States for material earlier then.
They didn't with the United States, but they literally before Molotov-Ribbentrop, after all the agreements, after the Munich Agreement, after everything, right before Molotov-Ribbentrop, they literally offered Western Europe a military alliance.
Wait, what game is this? I think I've played this. Actually, no, I haven't played this game before. Never mind.
Alliance to go against Nazi Germany, right? They literally offered 1 million troops plus equipment plus.
Wait, hold on. In what? Wait, after Nazi Germany invaded?
No, before Molotov-Ribbentrop. Are you not listening to me? Before Molotov-Ribbentrop, before the agreement, before even Poland, before anything, right? After all the agreements that Western Europe did, after the Munich Agreement, they offered a military alliance against Nazi Germany, and it was refused, right?
What was the proposal called?
I can remember the name, but I'll search it. 1 second.
I think, if I remember it correctly, because I've looked into this too, because I've heard this before, isn't it the case that part of the agreement against Nazi Germany included the fact that the Soviets wanted Poland, and again, like they were like, okay, we'll make a deal with you against the Nazis if you allow us to take apart Poland and conquer and annex this territory of this other country that the United Kingdom and France was allies with. Can I look this up quick, actually? Or somebody, I'll look this up quick off screen. Could have sworn that was the case.
Do you think that maybe do you think maybe Soviet Union? You can link in a DG chat. Do you think maybe the Soviet Union would have been more prepared for a Germany invasion if they weren't also invading and cutting up territory with Nazi Germany?
What? That's historical. They didn't have industrialization yet. Look at
but they had enough industrialization to invade Poland and take territory and.
I don't know if you know this.
I don't. Tell me.
They barely fought any battles.
Why was that? Because the Nazi Germany had already stopped the country up on the other side.
No. Because the Polish troops retreated and went to fight on the Western Front.
Right? That's crazy how that works. Because Poland had to fight two fronts against two very non-aligned countries that had clearly defined borders that they were going to have after. That's crazy how that works, huh? Weird.
Yeah, you're trying to bring some fucking morality into this debate.
I'm not bringing morality. I'm just saying that, like, man, Poland must have been like, I sure am getting fucked from both sides by two countries that definitely don't have an alliance with each other.
Did you know that Poland literally had military treaties before Molotov-Ribbentrop with Nazi Germany, and it was due to the same reason that Molotov-Ribbentrop happened. They knew that Nazi Germany wanted to.
Yeah, but I don't have to hear every 6 months a bunch of fucking retards going like, Polish people fought the Nazis and they're so brave. Dude, people brag about the Soviet. What do you mean? All the Soviet Soviet, all the current Russian propaganda, and you guys
everyone says this.
The Soviet Union defeating Nazi Germany.
Everyone says this. Everyone says this, folks.
Yeah, they do. That's what I. What do you think I was replying to on Twitter? What do you think our conversation started? Look at Twitter, you fucking retard. Hold on. The only reason you're talking to me right now, the only reason you're talking to me right now is because people say this. It's because I linked. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, true. And that tweet said, "You'll see who wanted to defeat the Nazis and who did it. You'll see who wanted."
This is the type of productive, constructive conversations that we need more of online. This is the type of dialogue that'll really help bring us all together in such a divided time. Very happy to be a part of this conversation. Very happy I was exposed to this conversation. And any medical expenses for brain tumors removed after this conversation will not be compensated by me and or Destiny.
To defeat the Nazis, who did it. And you know what that graph has over 6 million Soviet failures listed on it. That's what I see. Over 6 million Soviet failures. That's right.
Funny.
Every single body that went into the ground, the Soviet Union somehow wants credit for.
You're conflating two things.
Yeah.
You're saying that people say that the United States didn't do anything. Western Europe didn't. That's not true. What is said in that tweet, if you can read, you absolutely can't. Is that it's about the Eastern Front, right? America barely fought on the Eastern Front. They had the Lend-Lease, right? They sent military aid, but those guns need fingers, right, to pull the trigger, and they were Soviet fingers, right? They were Soviet soldiers fighting in the Eastern Front. America and the other countries fought on the Western Front, right? Yeah. So it makes no fucking sense to quote the tweet and say, they didn't do anything. They just were defending themselves and they had an allies. It's fucking retarded. They won the Eastern Front. Yeah. By themselves, practically. Right?
Where was the majority of the Soviet deaths on the Eastern Front? Do you think it was in like German-controlled territory or Russian-controlled territory? Just curious.
Russian-controlled, Soviet-controlled.
Then why the fuck would I give them credit for fighting against? They weren't fighting against the Nazis. They were repelling a fucking invader. I'm not going to give you credit for defeating the Nazis.
They were fighting against the Nazis who were the invader.
Defending your territory, shittily, might I add. No, it's a totally different thing. So to be who cares about D-Day and the Americans? Look at how many Nazis the Russians killed. You don't get credit for killing people that are fucking invading you.
Okay, first of all, why? Second of all, that's literally not true. They didn't. The majority of the casualties were in Soviet territory. Yeah, but the Eastern Front was more than.
Look, the Soviets did a gigantic contribution to the war effort, and they took the majority of the German army's brute force because of just how gigantic their territory was, and I like the Soviet winter and the amount of men they threw at the front line. That definitely did a ton of damage to the Germans. But a lot of people, and I don't want to take away from that commitment of the millions upon millions of people across the entirety of what used to be the Soviet Union resisting against the Nazi invasion. I don't want to take away from that contribution. But a lot of people try to paint it as if the Soviets won alone, even though much of the equipment they were using were provided through Lend-Lease provided by the West. Many of the advances that they could do were due to the fact that troops had to be pulled away from the Eastern Front to fight D-Day, to fight the Germans, to fight the Americans in Italy, to fight in other locations all across the world. So I don't like the story that is often touted by the Kremlin, which is the West and the rest sat back and did nothing as they fought the Nazis.
Has donated $15. Brain Tumor Treatment Fund.
Thank you, I appreciate that. That they fought the Nazis, and they were the ones who, really defeated them. When they waited, as France was occupied, they waited as the Netherlands and Belgium and Denmark and Norway and Yugoslavia and all these other countries were occupied by the Germans, who proceeded to engage in a campaign of repression, and even the Soviets told people in these territories to some degree not to resist too hard. They didn't want to cause too much trouble with their German allies. And they sit out of the war before the Germans then turn their brutality on them. They then fight the war on the back foot for the next 4 years, supported by Western allies. There's so much of the story that is not included. What is not included is the beginning years where they fought where they didn't fight the German. What is not included is the supplies that they used that were provided by the West, and how bombings like Dresden and the D-Day landings were encouraged by Stalin in order to help his war effort. I think the message of many different countries and peoples all across the world uniting to fight against a single totalitarian force which was trying to annex large swaths of territory in a campaign of annihilation, I think that is not only a better depiction of what happened, showing the diversity of the coalition that ended up beating the Nazis, but also it's more beautiful.
The Soviet territory, right? They went from Moscow to Berlin. There's some regions, right? Between.
Well, I mean, according to the MR Pact, that entire territory belongs to either Nazi Germany or the Soviet Union, huh? Right?
There's some regions between Moscow and Berlin that is not Germany and not.
Is there?
Former Russian Empire,
is that what those two people agreed on? That there would be territory between them that was.
You're moving. Yeah, thank you. That's a caveat to Molotov-Ribbentrop again.
Okay. Anything else you got for us before?
No, your tweet is retarded. It doesn't make any sense. They fought the biggest landmass in human history, right?
Great, that's nice. Yeah.
And you're saying, oh, they just had casualties because they were invaded and they were fighting for their own land. That's literally not true, right? They liberated the Eastern Front. There's more territory.
They liberated
the Soviet Union between Moscow.
Do you consider? When you say liberated, when you take over a country and then you make them part of your Soviet Union, is that liberated, or what do you mean by that?
What part of your Soviet Union? What? What the fuck you're talking about? You can, if you want to give the retard lib take, you can say that they were satellite states. They weren't part of the Soviet Union. What? What the fuck? Was Yugoslavia part of the Soviet Union? Yeah, you're not saying shit. You're just making shit up.
That taking over territory, and then I'm just saying, oh yeah, they liberated the great liberators, like how the United States liberated Afghanistan and Iraq. Thank God.
Oh my God.
That's true. No, actually, that's not fair, because to be honest, the United States probably had more of a moral authority there than the Soviet Union did. Suck my dick, bitch. Okay.
There it is. Man, I wish I had more to say. The problem with this debate, and this is the problem with a lot of debates I see online, especially about history, is that they'll get stuck up on like a few points and just kind of circle around them for like 10, 20, 30 minutes. And so I'll just be like, oh, this is wrong. Here's a source here. Or, oh, I disagree with this for this reason. And then I'll say what I have to say, but they're just too busy yelling at the position or saying the position again through insults over and 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 over again. Making it kind of pointless dialogue, but it's fun dialogue, but it's pointless dialogue. Like after the first 5 minutes, it became really a mess. But this isn't the end, by the way. He quits 26 minutes in. This video's 3.5 hours. We're not going to watch this video, but we are going to watch some more.
Today. I don't know why I'm letting this guy get me so wound the fuck up.
I gotta watch all of it.
Hello?
Oh, what up?
Lonerbox.
Hey, I was gonna
Lonerbox joins
your fucking Molotov-Ribbentrop conversation, but I didn't want to dogpile the guy, so.
Oh no,
I don't think I've seen Destiny get this pissed that often, but it really is those random ass chatters, those random chatters that don't even poke up that often, that'll get you the most pissed. Not because their points are frustrating to deal with, it's just that they make their points the most frustrating way imaginable.
Dogpile. He fights every single day with every single person in chat. Why? Would you want to add to that?
Yeah, just a few little niche stories about that whole pact and like Soviet shit.
Yeah. Wait, hold on. Can you? Okay. I know you all like to troll me. I know you're all in a fucking Discord when you do this. Turn your microphone up. Okay. You're almost muted. Why?
Wait, am I?
Yeah, you're fucking so quiet. Yeah, you're so quiet. Up your fucking. Oh, I'm not upping you.
Hey,
okay.
No, fuck you. I'm in the fucking red on my end. I don't know what you're talking. Okay, let me. Fuck. Like I'm in the red. Why? Why am I in the red on my thing but not on yours?
Okay. This is you up at 200% talk.
Hello?
It's like barely better.
Wait, okay. Try that.
There you go. Yeah. Was your Discord volume turned down or your Windows volume turned down?
No, the fucking automatic gain control was off for some reason. Okay. Yeah, so fucking, okay, maybe you know some of these, but I think they're very funny. Do you know Molotov wasn't even supposed to be the Soviet foreign minister at the time? Do you know about Litvinov?
Oh no! Oh no! I forgot about this. The Soviets fired one of the former foreign ministers because he was too Jewish, and they didn't want to piss off the Nazis.
Yeah, I do, but tell my chat they probably don't.
Yeah, so he was the old foreign minister, and Stalin basically fired him to smooth over the talks with Germany because he was Jewish.
Oh, there was a little bit of I feel like I read at one point that the Soviet Union was going to have their own little anti-Jew shit, but they didn't get to it in time, and everything kind of fell apart.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of Soviet anti-Semitism. I think as well with the, but that's quite thoughtful though. I think.
That's quite what?
I think everyone should. I think that's quite thoughtful though, right? Like getting rid of your Jewish guy to smooth over relations with Nazis.
Oh man. Uh-oh.
I think.
Hold up.
I think
There we
most of us
go.
should.
Where is he?
I think most of us should look for a partner who.
Hold on. Can't you? The
Is that thoughtful?
Stalin himself is about to join. General Lobby, where are you? Can't close. Okay, good luck.
Hello.
Hello?
I had
Can
some
you-
questions about Molotov-Ribbentrop.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, before those questions, I'm sure you have them. That's very curious what you just said, that they replaced the Jewish minister because he was Jewish, because of anti-Semitism, right? Is that what I heard?
Yeah, I can
They
find
had-
you the Stalin quote if you want.
Yeah, it was the British minister, it was the Italian minister, it was the French minister, or for which country was that minister for?
It's a foreign minister, so he manages their foreign affairs. It's not for any specific country, it's for all countries.
What are you asking me?
He was representing the Soviet Union for which country?
It's a foreign minister. He would represent the Soviet Union for all countries. I think he's confusing a foreign minister with an ambassador.
What do you mean for
They
what
did
country?
talks- They replaced the diplomat for what country? Hello? Is this difficult to understand?
You could not craft a more aggravating, annoying person in a test tube if you tried to. It's impossible. It's impossible. Because not only is he saying the question, or like saying this question to Loner Box in the most like incomprehensible way possible. You kind of have to like decrypt it like a Rubik's Cube. But he's not even saying it. Like, even if you do decrypt it, the question he's asking is just fundamentally flawed because there's just a foreign minister. It's not a foreign minister just for Italy, a foreign minister just for Germany. Foreign minister is the foreign minister of the country that manages the country's foreign affairs, all of its foreign affairs, including all countries. He's getting that mixed up with the diplomat. And because of his confusion, because he doesn't even understand what he's saying, he attacks Loner Box in response. You know, just a confused, hungry animal in the woods, doesn't understand the world and is lashing out at it.
What do you mean for which
English is-
country? He was the Russian foreign minister.
Yeah, correct. For Nazi
he
Germany,
like-
right?
Okay.
He doesn't know. He doesn't know what a foreign minister is.
To make deals with Nazi Germany. It's not a anti-Semitism problem, right? The issue is that Nazi Germany was anti-Semitic.
Okay, so we've still gotten to the core of his point, even if he doesn't understand what he's even saying. So he's saying that, oh, the anti-Semitism doesn't matter because they removed it in reaction to Germany's anti-Semitism, not because they were personally anti-Semitic. Number one, there was a lot of anti-Semitism in the Soviet Union. Number two, the reacting to another country's anti-Semitism by firing your own former minister for being a Jewish sends a really, really bad message to the international Jewish community, to the Jewish people in your own country, and how much you're willing to cooperate with anti-Semites and being anti-Semitic, or at least coddle them. You could have had, I don't know, like a non-Jewish German diplomat if you just wanted to concentrate on that. But again, it was the foreign ministry. It was the foreign ministry for all foreign affairs. So if we interacted with like a single racist country and we had, okay, let me be clear. If Joe Biden said, I'm not going to have a black foreign minister because it might piss off this racist country, is that something we would all be like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. We should cave to that. That's something that we should coddle. It's so silly, man. It's so weak when it comes to dealing with Stalin and anything Stalin did wrong. It's like, no. There's a justification for everything he did, always. Xander Raid, thank you so much for the raid, Xander. I appreciate it.
correct?
Yeah, it's just very that's what I meant. It's just thoughtful of Stalin.
Yeah, because Destiny said, they had anti-Semitism
I
problems.
think
in
we
the
should all
Soviet
strive to
Union.
find a partner who
It's
considers our needs in that way.
It's so retarded because they explicitly had policies to combat anti-Semitism. Right? There's a famous speech from Lenin that says that anti-Semitism is one of the most retarded things ever. Right?
Is that the speech? That's what he says.
Yeah, he literally says that in English. Yeah. He says retarded. Yeah, sure.
Can I ask my questions now?
You can. Yeah. I just want to.
By the way, the Soviet Union did engage in pogroms in Ukraine. I just want to make that clear. The Soviet soldiers did engage in mass killings of Jews.
Point out that it's completely
you were
historical. To say
saying-
that,
you
there's
were-
anti-Semitism problems in the Soviet Union, and that's why they replaced the minister.
You were saying that
I was?
it was completely strategic, Molotov-Ribbentrop. One question, maybe a couple about that point. One would be like, it wasn't just a military pact, it was also part of it also involved a commercial agreement where the Soviets supplied raw materials to Germany, and the Germans had a requirement, and those requirements were completely met. I think like 70 or 80% of German imports from 39 to 41 came from the Soviet Union. They got fucking steel, copper,
And
petroleum.
Oof.
This was part of actually what helped. This was part of what helped the Germans push off the British blockade. So
Yeah,
Yikes.
true. Yeah, it contributed.
Strange strategy.
Right? The issue is that you're not looking at the date that Molotov-Ribbentrop happened, right? It happened after the military treaties and after all the economic treaties that were made.
no, this was the 1940.
No, it was.
commercial
I
agreement
can
was
quote this.
renewed.
Sorry. It was actually after, right? I have it right here. I'm gonna.
No, I'm saying that there were multiple agreements. They were carried on. There was a 39 one. There was a 34. They started in 34, right? The Soviet-Nazi relations started in 34 with trade, but they carried on and they were renewed constantly.
Yeah, and you know what happened in
I
35?
just want to know.
You know
I
what
want to
happened
ask you.
in
No, I
35?
want to. You haven't answered my question
Yeah.
first. I want to ask you.
Which question?
I'm trying to ask you if it was prep for a war. Why would they meet all the requirements even in 1940? Why would they give Germany everything
Because the alternative is to be invaded by Nazi Germany, right? You're asking why didn't they?
Wonder if, again, this is the last time I'll make this point because I made it too many times already. If it would have been easier for them to deal with a German invasion if they were fighting alongside the Poles and the French while the French still had their territorial holdings and their army. I mean, during the German invasion of Poland, they did not have a strong enough force to invade France. They didn't. And so if that force was not only met by Polish soldiers, but Soviet soldiers as well, that probably really would have complicated things. I'm just throwing that out there.
Didn't
Was
they
that the
break
agreement? Was
agreement?
that give us our goods or we'll invade you?
What?
the-
What a ridiculous
no.
proposition.
What the fuck? I didn't say that. I'm saying that if they didn't honor the agreement, right, they would be invaded.
No, but he's saying why would they
Yeah?
make that agreement to give them
This
So why,
everything?
that's not part of the agreement. That there was. What does it say in Molotov-Ribbentrop that if you don't supply us with raw materials, you fucking fight a war?
because being invaded and losing land is worse than just giving them resources, right?
Where did they say that was the alternative? Did Germany say if you fall short, just fall short on your raw material supplies, we'll
They
invade
didn't need
you?
to say it explicitly. They said that they wanted to expand eastward and they wanted to enslave the Slav race, right?
Well,
is this
Russians knew that since the 1920s. They still got into a pact. Stalin still tried to join the Axis powers in 1940,
you're
and they
deflecting.
still
You're
continued to
deflecting
supply.
again.
No, I'm
You're
not
deflecting.
deflecting.
Because
They knew that. They didn't stop them from ignoring the warnings.
Since 1933, Western Europe had military agreements up until Molotov-Ribbentrop with Nazi Germany, right? They had military treaties and they had economic treaties with Nazi Germany, right? Molotov-Ribbentrop happened after the Munich Agreement, after all these military treaties, after all these economic treaties, and after the Soviet Union offered a anti-Nazi military alliance to stop Nazi Germany, right? From just fucking everything up. Do you deny
I'm gonna ask you the same question again when you're done, but carry on.
Do you deny anything that I just said? Is anything that I just said a lie?
Deny it.
I kind of stopped listening at the end. I just wanted to ask my question again. You're not answering my question.
Thanks. You're deflecting again because I said before
I'm not deflecting. You're not answering my question. I'm deflecting your deflection. Sure.
Okay.
I want to know why they would meet all the fucking raw material requirements if they were
what question didn't I answer? What question didn't I answer?
Why would they meet every single term of the trade agreements with raw materials, which they knew Germany was using for their military, and just be like, oh no, sorry.
Because the alternative.
Why couldn't they just slack and be like, oh fuck, sorry.
Because they can't slack. That's not how states work, right?
Why don't they just slack and apologize if they're expecting to get invaded anyway?
What fucking apologize? They're fucking retarded. They can't slack, right? They don't have a proper military. They don't have industrialization. Of course, they have to. They have to honor the part of the agreement because the alternative is to be invaded, and losing land and all the resources in that land and losing your troops is worse. Just giving them resources, right?
So they gave them resources to avoid being
invaded. You're pinning the success of Nazi Germany on these resources, and you're ignoring the fact that they had military and economic treaties with Western Europe. You're just completely ignoring that.
Just a really simple question.
All of those military and economic treaties ended once the Germans invaded Poland, and all type of appeasement, everything else was shown to have failed. Even the United States, which didn't completely cut off all trade and everything with the Germans, would engage in a pretty strong embargo campaign against the Japanese, which is part of the reason why the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor in the first place, and would engage in the Lend-Lease program, shipping weapons and materiel to the United Kingdom and to the Soviets. While the Soviet Union just eventually the Soviets, the Soviet Union just kind of sat there and armed itself and enjoyed its new imperial conquests in Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland.
I just answered. You're gonna answer. You're gonna ask another question, or you're gonna just engage. You're gonna at least engage with the fact that they had treated Western Europe.
I'll restate what you said. You said that they met all the terms because they didn't want to get invaded. But they met all the terms and they got invaded. Does that mean they fucked up?
No shit. Yeah, I didn't say that it was to stop war. I said that they knew war was
like a double whammy.
Does this look like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you just invaded. Oh, it really sucks that we have to be here conquering all this land together. I'm sorry, man. If you don't think this was like a fun agreement for both of them, where they get all their conquests and imperial holdings and take all their land, I mean, and this was, oh no, the Soviets were very serious about their anti-Nazi efforts when they gave them all their resources, deported German communists to be killed in the Holocaust, and split up Poland with them. They were very serious in their anti-Nazi commitments.
Everything they need to invade you to avoid them invading you.
It's not a double whammy. The whammy would be to give them everything and then be invaded right after. That's not what happened. They had time to industrialize and get equipment, right? They were in a dogshit position during Molotov-Ribbentrop. They couldn't stop a Nazi invasion, right?
You realize that while the Soviets were, so you say they were using those 2 years to improve their position, whilst also giving Germans everything they needed.
They didn't have a crystal ball. They didn't know that Nazi Germany would invade in 1941, right? They thought that it was in 1943. They had industrialization plans to then have a war with Nazi Germany because they believed it was inevitable due to the foreign policy of Nazi Germany and their open statements about expanding eastward and enslaving the Slav race.
Yes, but they were wrong then. They gave the Germans everything they needed.
This is fucking stupid.
Yeah, they got cucked. Yeah.
Well, I don't understand what your point is. Oh yeah, they got fucked. Yeah, sure.
Do you think Stalin was wrong when he ignored the alternative? I'm not gonna let you make just 10 questions and then not engage with anything I said.
What has he said? What has he said that there's something like constructive to respond to? And the question was pretty direct. Was it right for Stalin to make the deal considering how things played out?
They were first, right?
I mean, I don't even think you need to consider how things played out to know it was a bad deal from the get-go.
Yeah, they gave the Germans everything they needed to avoid being invaded, and then the Germans invaded them. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Right away, no, they had time to industrialize, right? They had time to prepare equipment.
Well, but they didn't,
You're
right?
speaking like,
but what? Okay. Why did the Germans sign the agreement? Can we talk about this for a moment? Why did the Germans sign the agreement? Why did the Germans sign the agreement, even if they could have, for example, if it was just Germans v. Poland, they could have conquered Poland. They could have conquered all of it. They had a strong enough military to eventually conquer all of it. So why did they make the agreement with the Soviets? If all that would bring was kicking the can down the road and allowing them to, you know, have the Soviet invasion, the invasion of the Soviet Union later. The reason they signed the agreement is because they wanted to protect their flank. They didn't want to have to fight the United Kingdom, France, and Poland, and the Soviet Union all at the same time. And so by just taking on Poland, France, and the UK at once, it made their war goals more achievable. Then after they crushed the Poles, helped by the Soviets, the Soviet invasion sped up the German invasion of Poland. They were able to reorganize the forces, go towards France, conquer France, and then eventually turn their guns on the Soviets. If it was all just so beneficial for the Soviets, why did the Nazis agree to it? If it was such an anti-Nazi agreement, why would the Nazis sign their own death warrant then?
They also gave the Germans time to industrialize as well, right?
What do you mean? They absolutely
They also
did.
gave the Germans time to amass the arms they needed by giving them all they needed.
Right. And Western Europe also did that before Molotov-Ribbentrop, right? They did that before.
Do you think?
Can you acknowledge that? Can you acknowledge? No, please. Can you acknowledge? Can you acknowledge? Please, stop asking me. Stop asking me shit. Stop asking me shit. I answered your question already. Yeah, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. Can you acknowledge that?
I'm just starting a sentence. You can let me start the sentence.
Can you acknowledge? Yeah, you're just gonna ramble. Can you acknowledge that before Molotov-Ribbentrop?
He's gonna ramble. Okay, this guy feels like a meme. This guy doesn't feel real. I feel like this person is just completely fake. I refuse to believe this is a real human being.
We had military and economic treaties that also helped Nazi Germany grow.
So I don't know about you, but I'm not like a partisan hack.
Hello, can you answer my question? I consider that giving resources by the Soviet Union to Nazi Germany.
I'm answering your question, right?
Yeah, go ahead. You
So
just called me a
unlike
hack.
you.
Somebody in gutter chat just said, "No, most coherent Brazilian." Hey. I feel like I'm on dangerous territory here. I don't even know how I can respond to that. But Brazilians are okay. At least half of them.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm not partisan. And do you think I support the decisions of fucking Chamberlain?
Answer.
Like,
Do you think I support getting rid of a Jewish minister because he's Jewish? No, I don't support that. It's fucking retarded. And also historical. It's not just because he was Jewish. It was because they needed relations with Nazi Germany, right? To stop the fucking invasion.
Like, I'm anti.
Okay, it was because he was Jewish, right? You say, well, it wasn't because he was Jewish, it was because they needed relations with Nazi Germany. But why was it that they needed to remove him to have the relationship with Nazi Germany? Number one, they didn't need to remove him to have the relationship with Nazi Germany. That's the first thing. This is just, a little gift basket for Hitler. And number two, that means they were removing him for anti-Semitic purposes. If you're removing a person from a government position because he's Jewish, because the Germans might be angry about him being Jewish, then you're removing him for anti-Semitic reasons. You are appealing to not anti-Semites, and you're trying to give them what they want.
Appeasement, right? But I don't think appeasement is quite the same as helping the Nazis invade a fucking country.
Dude, okay.
What?
Yeah, you're gonna call the annexation. You're gonna call the annexation of parts of Czechoslovakia as appeasement, right? Just because Britain didn't get parts of Czechoslovakia, so it's not the same thing as Molotov-Ribbentrop.
And they also didn't smash Czechoslovakia from the rear like the Soviets did to Poland. Yeah, that's probably part of it as well.
What the fuck is that point? What does it matter if it's a British or a Nazi gun killing people in Czechoslovakia? What the fuck is your point?
Well, the fact that
it was part of the agreement.
When you're
right?
getting invaded, right? It's probably harder when it comes from both sides, right?
You know that you're a hack fuck, right? Because you're ignoring the fact that they had military treaties before, and you're pinning all the blame on the Soviet Union and the things that they.
I mean, that was a solid point. Lonerbox is a hack fuck. He can't really debate that.
Resources after Molotov-Ribbentrop, right? Molotov-Ribbentrop is a direct There's a direct line between Molotov-Ribbentrop in the West feeding Nazi Germany resources.
I'm just
right?
saying it was
You
a bad
understand that?
plan, though, wasn't it? If that was the plan, first of all, it was a bad plan.
Yeah,
Second
sorry.
of all, if that was the
thanks.
plan,
Thanks, General Hindsight. Thanks, General Hindsight. I'm glad
not
that you
just-
can look.
You don't need to have hindsight to know that splitting up countries like colonial possessions with a nation on the warpath for annihilation, you don't need hindsight to know that was a bad idea. You also don't need hindsight to know that the gobbling up of Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania was wrong and immoral when it happened. You also don't need hindsight to know that having everyone gang up on the Germans at once would probably be beneficial at the start, okay? You don't need even hindsight to know it because a lot of communists internationally were extremely critical of the Soviet Union after the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. Many, many American communists and communists all around the globe were extremely critical. Polish communists, the most critical, in part because they were like, oh my God, you're going to sign away half of our country to those brutes, to those maniacs, and you're going to do what to the other half of my country? And they murdered the Polish army. That's what they did when they went in there. They wanted no opposition to their rule. It was immoral when they did it. It was immoral when they did it and failed in its goals, making it a failure, a gigantic failure.
Back, you can
It's
look
not just
back.
hindsight.
Yeah, I'm glad you can look back. I'm glad the General Hindsight over here. I'm glad the General Hindsight over here can look back 100 fucking years before the Cold War, before everything, before World War II. I'm sure you're so fucking smart. You can look back 100 fucking years after and say, oh, it was a bad plan. There was better decisions to be made here. Thank you. Yeah, what the fuck you're saying? Of course, there's better things to do.
It's not hindsight. Stalin was warned that there were German troops amassing at the border, and he ignored them.
You're fucking lying because
He did
Stalin
for like
literally
3 weeks before sending recon onto the fucking border.
he literally offered 1 million troops at the western border of the Soviet Union.
He was warned in the first June
to invade Nazi Germany. He wanted a military alliance against Nazi Germany with Western Europe, and it was denied before Molotov-Ribbentrop.
Pivot. He was warned that there were Germans at the
It's a
border in
pivot.
41.
It was before Molotov-Ribbentrop. It was before. How is that a pivot? How is that a pivot? Please.
Because I'm talking about 41, when Stalin was warned that they were amassing fucking troops at the border.
Oh yeah, and I'm saying that before 41, before 41, in 1938, he offered a military alliance against Nazi Germany, right? It's fucking retarded to tell me that.
Doing hindsight, but I'm not just doing hindsight. Stalin was warned. He had border reports on the 1st of June. He sent fucking reconnaissance missions on the 18th. And by then it was too late. And then they got fucking smashed.
Yeah. Can you give me the date for that? Can you give me the date for that?
1st of June.
That was 1940.
41. He's warned that there are fucking Germans at the border.
Now listen to me.
He doesn't send in reconnaissance missions until the 18th.
Yeah, thank you, Captain Hindsight. Now listen to me.
It's not fucking hindsight.
What's that hindsight? Hey, there's a bomb in the library. Oh, okay. Boom. Oh, I didn't do anything. Hindsight 2020. Sorry, you can't what? I should have checked up on that bomb threat in the library. Pfft. Yeah, okay, Captain Hindsight.
In 19,
yeah. To join the Axis power is going to pay off, and it doesn't.
Yeah. Hey, let's make an agreement here. All right.
You mean like Stalin did with fucking Hitler?
You give me everything I need to invade you, and I hope that I don't invade you.
Relax. Let's have an agreement here.
Yeah, give me everything I need to invade you, and then get surprised when I invade you.
Hey, listen to me. Between me and you, okay, you're correct. If he did ignore it, he shouldn't have. That's a bad decision. What I'm saying is that before what you're saying, before 1941, in 1938. He offered a military. Shut the fuck up! He offered a military alliance. Shut the fuck up! He offered a military alliance between the Soviet Union and Western Europe, right, against Nazi Germany, and it was refused in 1938.
No, the deal wasn't refused.
Yes, it did happen. It did happen.
There was a term that was refused. What term? What was the term?
Oh, I think this is the Poland thing that I was talking about earlier. Remember how I said earlier? He was like, well, the Soviets made a proposal to the Allies. And if I remember correctly, the reason why the Allies didn't accept it, one of the glaring reasons was because the Allies were, friends with Poland. They were allies with Poland. And the Soviets said, we'll make an alliance against Hitler if you allow us to carve up Poland. See, this was always on these in the Soviet mindset. This was always part of Stalin's agenda, was to cut up these former Russian colonial holdings and to set up his own empire, set up his own occupation, to trounce the sovereignty of these nation states and allow them to choose to go their own economic path and bring the Marxist Leninist revolution to them by force.
Tell me, Mishwan, tell me.
What was the terms of the refusal?
Tell me. Why was it refused?
Because Poland didn't want Stalin to move his fucking troops through.
Oh, yeah. And why is that?
Probably because they thought if Soviet troops come to Poland, they'll never leave.
So, yeah,
which
thank
was
you.
correct.
So you believe that ignoring
Whoa,
those
you left that part out when we were
warnings,
talking, can't close the room, to be
You
fair.
believe-
Oh, that
you believe
changes
that-
it quite a bit.
Yeah, but it was before Molotov-Ribbentrop, right? At that point, Poland had
That deal
already
wasn't thrown out by
military.
then,
They had military treaties. They had military treaties with Nazi Germany, between Poland and Nazi Germany, right? So it's fucking retarded.
Okay, wait. If we're talking about if I remember correctly, the military treaties that he's talking about is like, for example, in the Munich Agreement, Poland also took a little bit of territory from Czechoslovakia. They also took some territory from other nation states around them during the gobbling up period that the Germans were going through. That doesn't mean that we should wipe Poland off the face of the earth as an independent nation state.
Say, oh, they didn't want.
That also doesn't justify the Soviet Union's actions.
They didn't want Soviet troops there. It's fucking stupid. They prefer Nazi troops there. They prefer to be run over by Nazi Germany because, like the Soviet Union, Poland knew that war with Nazi Germany was inevitable, right? That's why Poland did the treaties with Nazi Germany.
Why did you
Just
leave
like,
that part? Was Destiny saying that you left that part out?
He did leave that part out. He left quite a bit out, but don't worry, I won the argument anyway.
Because, yeah, thank you. Because it's not relevant, right? The fact is that
It's
they
not
had
relevant.
The
The deal wasn't thrown out. They just said that you can't move your troops.
Okay, could you imagine we had like a deal? Like, for example, let's say we were proposing something was being proposed to us, and like, okay, America, don't worry, this is a deal to do with climate change and to deal with this very important issue, but also we're gonna have to move Chinese troops into California. What? No, we don't want to move Chinese troops into California. Or like, okay, we're gonna move Chinese troops into Canada. We're gonna have Chinese troops all throughout Canada, and and maybe we'll take it over. Who knows? Of course, they're not going to agree to that stuff. Poland was the ally of the UK and of France. They were not going to agree to have Poland possibly conquered by the Soviets in order to build an alliance with them against Hitler. They wanted an alliance with the Soviets against Hitler, but they didn't want to sell out the Poles to do it. Something that Hitler was perfectly willing to do, because Hitler did not care about the Poles. He viewed them as inferior.
Poland.
Yeah, so what he was trying to say earlier, he was trying to say that the Munich Pact was the same thing as the MR Pact, basically. He was trying to say they're basically the same thing.
No.
Yeah, that's really retarded.
Yeah, I know it was. Everybody in chat said he was retarded too.
No, the part of the secret protocol was the same as Molotov-Ribbentrop. I said that the Munich Agreement plus the military and economic pacts amount to the same or more severe than Molotov-Ribbentrop. That's what
Apart from the fucking countries that got invaded from two sides. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Britain.
And also the amount of amount of fucking raw materials.
I like how you pretend that Britain is somehow okay into doing this. Because I don't
think
you're
they were
fucking
okay.
retarded.
When did I say they were okay?
But then,
When did I say Britain was okay to oppose Germany?
You're giving out that. Yeah, you're giving out that message because you fucking ignore it, right? I mentioned it and you just.
I acknowledged it earlier as well.
Okay, I'll ask you again then. Before Molotov-Ribbentrop, before 1938, or even during 1938, there were agreements, military treaties and economic treaties between Western Europe and Nazi Germany. Yes? Yes or no? Please tell me. Yes. Did that contribute to Nazi Germany growing militarily?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
Did that help them grow their borders? For example, annexing parts.
And it was also bad. The appeasement was bad. But by the time the Danziger War, like Hoi 4, like focus tree was completed and the Germans invaded Poland, by the time that happened, like it had gotten so much worse. The situation had deteriorated, and it was clear what Hitler was doing at that point as he moved troops into Poland. What excuse do we have at that point when the French are like, okay, you invaded Poland, we will declare war. The British are like, okay, you invaded Poland, we will declare war. And the Soviets like, you've invaded Poland, we will assist you invading Poland, and we'll also take Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania for good measure. That's terrible. That's terrible, and it's only enabling their behavior. It's worse than the Munich Agreement, not only because it assists the Germans with their invasion, with the Soviets also killing Polish troops, and engaging in a mass deportation campaign afterwards during the occupation period before the Nazis invaded, before the Nazis backstabbed the Soviets, which was inevitable. But it also failed in confronting the Germans during the early stages of World War II, during the early stages of European World War II. That's ignoring, of course, the Japanese campaign against China. And because then you could say that, you know, World War II maybe started in the mid-1930s. So they had a vital moment where the war might have actually been ended much earlier. Maybe it would have only been a year in, you know, 1939. Maybe it would have ended in 1940 if all these different nation states united against Germany. Maybe not 1930, maybe 1941, 42. But I doubt the war would have been longer if it was the Soviet Union, Poland, the United Kingdom, and France against Germany at once. It probably also would have caused a lot more nation states which were held at gunpoint, like Denmark. It would have probably been harder to fight those nation states. It probably also would have been harder for the Germans to locate troops to do an invasion of Norway, or an invasion of Yugoslavia, or assist the Italians with an invasion of Greece. It would have maybe been more difficult for the Germans to engage in a campaign against Africa, trying to gather up territorial holdings and empire. The only point I'm trying to make here is that both were bad, but the Soviet Union's Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact went much further than appeasement, which was already wrong. It went straight into the territory of collaboration.
Czechoslovakia, that Britain and France and Italy gave
we
to
can just fast forward this and say my position is that they shouldn't have allowed the annexations.
Yeah,
there should have been more there.
You have some fucking brain cancer because you keep mentioning 1941
and the Soviets were kind of like the last ones.
And you ignore, say, oh, they gave resources and they helped Nazi Germany. Yeah, the other side did it also.
The difference is that one side did it when fucking the rest of Europe was already at war with Germany, when France and Britain had already declared war in Germany.
No,
and the Soviets continued to assist them.
You're wrong. You're wrong. Well, they did it before Molotov-Ribbentrop even. They did it. Again, I have the full list of treaties here. If you want to go over them, where can I paste this?
You're really missing out the fact, though, that after the Allies had already declared war on Germany, the Soviets were the ones who continued to supply raw materials to Germany.
Ooh,
yeah. Do you understand that? Do you understand that they had to industrialize? They didn't. They couldn't resist a Nazi invasion. Do you realize that? This is.
Well, they couldn't resist it anyway.
This is like blaming. Except you don't do this because you're an anti-communist.
I don't get this.
This is like blaming Poland because they did a non-aggression pact.
So it's weird to be. How could you say it's motivated by anti-communism? You can be a communist and find out about the Soviet Union invading Poland with the Nazis and say, actually, no, that's not the communism I signed up for. I know a lot of communists that don't like that.
With Nazi Germany, they needed to defend themselves, right? They needed time to industrialize.
Well, but Poland wasn't splitting up other countries with Nazi Germany, to be fair, right? Right.
Yeah, to be fair.
Sure, be fair. So,
to be fair,
then what you just said was fucking retarded.
Yeah,
to be fair.
Do you know why that? Yeah. To be fair, do you know why that happened? Because Poland didn't have the power to do that. Do you know why that is?
Oh, so you're saying Russia had a greater moral authority to resist Nazi Germany because they didn't have the power to do it.
Because by their own choice, they were hostile to the Soviet Union. After the October Revolution, sometime after, they declared war on the Soviet Union. They took parts of the Ukrainian Republic, right? That was later retaken after the Polish invasion. Do you understand that? That they were hostile towards Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union. On one side because Nazi Germany wanted to exterminate them, and the other because they were, by their own choice, hostile towards the Soviet Union, right? They declared fucking war with the Soviet Union.
Okay, so here's the big question then. So your basic premise is that Molotov-Ribbentrop was strategic, right? Because they wanted to buy time to defeat the Nazis later.
Uh-oh, careful.
Right?
He's walking you right into a trap.
But if that's the case, why did the Soviets deny it for 50 years? Why was
Yo, look at this. Do you see that glare in the background of my stream? That's God's kingdom of heaven offering me to go to heaven right now if I stop watching this debate, saying, please stop bringing the suffering to the kingdom of God's good earth. That is Jesus Christ himself reaching out his hand, and I will deny it. I will deny it, and I will block guiding light, and I'll say, no, stop the Lord. We must watch more of this cancer-ridden, disgusting, unproductive, tumor-inducing conversation.
Can I answer the
You think they would have written it down somewhere, right? If they had like enough evidence that they were just preparing for an invasion, they could have actually like produced that evidence.
You gave me a false premise, and then you ramble off. I didn't agree with that. Oh, dude, it was purely tactical, and it was to defeat Nazi Germany later. I didn't say that. I said that it was to buy time to resist the Nazi invasion that they knew was inevitable, right?
Wait, you just restate. Why do you do this thing where you restate what he said, but then you actually say, like, you just stated the same thing you just said?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
I think it's pretty simple what Stalin was doing. I think Stalin was like, I'm not a historian, okay, I'm not an expert, but I think Stalin wasn't necessarily friends with Hitler, but Hitler was willing to give him, at least in the short term, stuff that he wanted that the Allies wouldn't, like the partition of Poland. And he also used the opportunity to go after Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and consolidate holdings that were part of the Russian Empire, empowering the Soviet Union, but also with the Germans fighting the Western Allies like Poland and France and Great Britain. They would have to fight the Nazis tooth and nail for 2 years until the Soviets entered the fray. And when the Soviets finally did enter the fray, it was after the Battle of Paris, the battle for Belgium, the Netherlands, and even the Battle of Britain with the air battles, the conquest of Norway, the conquest of Denmark, the invasion and annexation of Yugoslavia, and the installation of the Ustase, the invasion of Greece. All of these fights and battles and wars happened before the Soviets got involved, meaning they could help themselves up, they could stay away from the violence and also still profit off of exports to the Germans. Maybe the idea was that the Western Allies would be slaughtered, the Germans would be damaged through all the fighting, and then eventually when the Germans turned on us, we would be ready to conquer Europe and free it from capitalist occupation and bring in the Stalinist, Marxist-Leninist dream of a communist utopia from one end of Asia all the way over to the tip of France. Maybe that was the idea. But either way, it backfired. It backfired horribly, and all it did was lead to a lot more people dying that was necessary, and him assisting in the Nazi war machine for its vital period during its most successful operations.
To defeat? No,
that's
it's not.
Strategic. That's the definition of strategic, but okay.
Okay, but it's fucking retarded. You're gonna say later that they gave resources to them and it was wrong, but that's part of the agreement, right? They can't not honor that until they have troops to resist the invasion, because not honoring the agreement leads to an invasion, right?
I don't know. You can still. I'm sorry. You can like fuck up with your trade agreement if you're anticipating an invasion anyway. Why not?
With Nazi Germany, no, you can't. You can't do that with Nazi Germany.
France and Germany went to war with Germany before the Soviets did. And the French certainly did not have enough supplies to fight the Germans on their own, and then they got wrecked for it. But, again, and I keep bringing this point up, I say we'll stop it, but if it was the Germans versus the French, the British, the Polish, and the Russians, I think it would have been much more difficult, much more difficult for them to manage in those early days. I think it was short-term thinking, and I think it was the Soviets looking out for themselves over what would be best for the rest of Europe, and it came back to bite them in the ass. Simple. I'm sorry, I keep putting forward that theory over and over and over again. I'll stop. And we're going to stop watching this in a few minutes anyway. This is going on for too long. It's dragging on now.
That's not how it works. Sorry.
So
You can maybe do it with the US, you can maybe do it with Germany, modern day Germany, you can do it with France. With Nazi Germany, no, it wasn't the case because they didn't have an army to stop the Nazi invasion. So yes, you actually do need to send resources to them.
Yeah, so for the final time, they gave the Germans everything they needed to invade them to avoid being invaded, and they got invaded. That's all. That's okay. It's fine.
Yeah, and before they did that, before the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, they got those resources and they got that land from, wait for it, Western Europe, right? They got those resources from Italy.
And it reached a point of no return, and the Soviets still wanted to play games. That's the problem. Because look, appeasement was wrong, appeasement was bad, but by 1939, all bets were off, but the Soviets still wanted to stay on the sidelines, training, getting better, doing whatever, you know, practicing three-pointers, whatever it could to improve its own game and gain whatever imperial spoils it could in the process.
From France, from Britain, right? Right? They didn't get it from the Soviet Union.
I oppose, yeah.
So yeah, and I oppose giving resources to Nazi Germany by the Soviet Union. But the difference here is that Britain wasn't doing it to industrialize.
But one happened after the rest of Europe was at war with Germany. The other one was before. Can you
acknowledge that the British Empire didn't do it to industrialize and defend against an invasion against?
No, the Soviets just left fucking France and the others to get fucking rolled while they were giving supplies to Germany. Yeah,
that's so retarded. France literally had a non-aggression pact before Molotov-Ribbentrop with Nazi Germany. They literally gave parts of Czechoslovakia along with the British Empire and Italy for Nazi Germany. Just, oh, there were no troops in Czechoslovakia. Yeah, what the fuck is that argument, right? They still annexed the territory. It doesn't matter if it's a British gun or a German gun. It's signed by Britain, by Italy, and by France.
Just to save us looping.
Yeah, you're fucking retarded. You're fucking retarded.
Just to save us looping again. Why were you saying that? Why were you describing the Soviets taking back Eastern Europe as?
Somebody in Gutter Chat also brought up maybe if they were like too busy not trying to conquer Finland, maybe they could have, maybe they could have not only not pushed the Finnish to ally with the Germans, but also not wasted lives and equipment during the invasion of Finland.
Why were you describing the Soviets taking back Eastern Europe as liberating?
Well, taking back, I didn't say that taking back was liberating. I said that they liberated from.
You said they liberated Eastern Europe, right? But why liberated?
From Nazi occupation, yes.
Okay, but that's not liberated, right?
Even.
Does that mean does that mean the Nazis liberated Eastern Europe from Soviet occupation?
No. What? No, of course not.
Why not? Because if you fucking go into a country and move one occupier out and replace them, you're not liberating them.
Even if you believe that that Soviet occupation was horrible, it's still better than Nazi occupation. Do you deny that? Do you believe that?
I don't know if they would agree with that.
Pretty low bar.
Yeah, and I mean, like, even in Poland, didn't they kill like 22,000 fucking officers and shit? Like, it's not like Soviet occupation was that much better, no?
Yeah, and also, if you're Tatar, you know, you get deported. Like all the Tatars got deported from Crimea. That was like a liberation.
You just made a big claim. Who believes that Nazi occupation is better than Soviet occupation?
No, God, this Nazi occupation was worse than Soviet occupation, but Soviet occupation was not that much better than Nazi occupation. Most certainly during the era of Joseph Stalin. Maybe if Khrushchev was in office or somebody else was in office, it would have been different. But under the era of Joseph Stalin, I mean, just think about what it was like for the Tatar population. The Tatar population in Crimea, the ethnic population of the Crimean Peninsula, were accused of being Nazi collaborators and forcefully deported. Many of them died in the process to areas all across the Soviet Union, with those restrictions only being lifted as in the very late period of the Soviet Union's existence. And as the Crimeans went back and they were told originally, like, oh, they have the right to return to their homes. But the Soviet Union was also sure to state that all the people who had moved there and had taken over their homes, they had the right to have those homes. So those people were still permanently displaced from their homes. They're finally allowed to go back to their homes, and they basically had to look at them, if they were not burnt to the ground and completely demolished and were just husks of what once used to be their childhood homes. They had to look at the homes of their former families, now occupied by new occupants. So even when the Soviet Union tried to remedy the situation and eventually apologize for this action, with even them admitting it was the wrong thing to do, all they could do was apologize. They still couldn't try to make it right.
Who believes that?
I think it's a pretty low bar, but depends on who for. The Tatars probably experienced it worse than the Soviets, no? Because they were ethnically cleansed. Half them died on the walk.
Also, I'm pretty sure in Ukraine for a while they prefer the Nazis to the fucking Soviets
No, that's
as well.
not true. That's not true.
Really? Then what about the whole stories about Bandera like working with the fucking? You're just wrong.
Yeah, I
Oh
can
my
answer
God.
that. I can answer that.
okay,
That's not
tell
true.
us. Okay.
The majority, that's slander.
The majority of Ukrainians probably did not fight with the UPA or Stefan Bandera. I think 2.5 million Ukrainians fought in the Red Army. It was one of the largest groups of people that died in the largest amount of casualties. Took the largest amount of casualties by fighting the Nazis. I think actually more what you would categorize as Ukrainians died than like what is the traditional image of the Russian, like the Muscovite. More Ukrainians actually died than people like who makes up the like white Muscovite like image of the Russian. Like more of the Ukrainians died, which isn't too surprising when you consider that the Nazis did get to occupy Ukraine, but they never got to occupy Moscow. And when you look at like the ethnic makeup of the Soviet military. So there was a real desire in Ukraine to not be part of the Soviet Union, not to be occupied by the Soviet Union. But when the people got to choose between the Nazis and the Soviet, the majority picked up guns with the Soviets. Now there's a question about like conscription and being forced to fight and stuff like that. But we don't have any evidence showing that the majority of Ukrainians actually allied with the Nazis. Most historians seem to believe that everyone kind of hated everyone, and there might have been people who preferred one side over the other side, but most Ukrainians hated everybody. And plus, Stefan Bandera was locked up by the Nazis anyway.
The majority of Ukrainian soldiers in the Red Army, when Nazi Germany invaded, fought against Nazi Germany. They weren't pro-Nazi, right?
No one said they were pro-Nazi. You just answered a totally different question.
Yeah, there were groups that collaborated with Nazi Germany, but the vast majority of Ukrainians didn't side with Nazi Germany. They didn't saw them as liberators, right? It was a small nationalistic Nazi collaborating part of that region. But
yeah, that's true.
It was a minority, right?
And even the ones that collaborated with the Nazis, a lot of them didn't even like the Nazis that much. It was more of an idea of like, look, we have no other idea of like how we're going to get our own nation state. Maybe we can get it this way. But even Stefan Bandera at first was like, don't join these German military formations. They only care about themselves. They don't care about Ukrainians. If you listen to German propaganda and rhetoric about Ukrainians, you'd probably come to the same conclusion as well. It was a mistake for anybody to collaborate with the Nazis, not only because the Nazis are horrible and evil and engaged in terrible atrocity against the Jews in Ukraine, but also because they were not going to give the Ukrainians a nation state that actually represented and defended or helped Ukrainian people.
It wasn't.
It was. I mean, Ukraine is like the breadbasket of Europe. You don't think that eventually the Germans would want to colonize all of Ukraine, considering how much food it produces and how useful it could be for the German Reich?
It didn't represent.
Why don't we be more specific then? Do you think the Tatars had it worse?
What the fuck are you saying?
I was about to finish the sentence.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, let's second round. Okay, let's be more specific. Comma.
Yeah,
do you think the Tatars had it worse under the Nazis or under Stalin?
They would have a worse life under Hitler. Yes.
No, did they have it worse under Hitler or under Stalin? Which one deported them where half of them died on the walk?
Did they have a?
Which one ethnically cleansed them and half of them died?
Okay.
Hitler or Stalin?
You're retarded.
That's a good.
They didn't. That's
That's
stupid.
true, but that's not the answer to my question.
Did they have a worse time in Kazakhstan under Soviet or under?
That's why I'm asking you specifically for particular groups. They were deported and half of them died on the way.
They would be killed. Even if you believe that.
So they had it worse under Stalin, no? Because he deported them. Even though they fought alongside the Red Army and Stalin called them fucking Nazis.
Because the Red Army fought against Nazi Germany. Otherwise, they would be killed the same way, right? Do you believe that the Nazi Germany would just have a Tatar republic for them in that place?
I'm not saying you give them a Tatar republic, but only one of those leaders deported them, and both of them had fucking control over Crimea. So at different points. So Stalin takes fucking Crimea back, and in the same year deports them.
Yeah, they control the region. What's your point? The Nazis did not control the region, so they didn't kill everyone. What the fuck is your point?
Nazis didn't control Crimea for a period, or Ukraine.
They did, but not to just fucking set up camps and kill everyone like they did in Eastern Europe, right? They didn't control. They were at war at that point. Right?
Nazis controlled Ukraine, and they did the fucking Holocaust in Eastern Europe, but they didn't deport all the. So I'm asking you for the Tatars. They did. The Nazis didn't deport the Tatars. They didn't anything against the Tatars. Russia did that.
Well, yeah, and do you realize that they were fighting a war against the Soviet Union and the Allies? They couldn't just kill everyone, right?
Well, they could do the fucking Holocaust.
Yeah, and do you know that the Holocaust included slave labor, right?
Like what they do in the Soviet Union,
so they
like
did do it.
Serbia.
So they have the capacity to do it while they're fighting a war or not.
The Soviet Union.
The
Yeah,
Holocaust happened during a
Union,
war. So you're saying they couldn't deport the Tatars because they had a war? No, they did the fucking Holocaust when they had a war.
Sorry,
No, they just chose not to deport the Tatars.
Sorry, Holocaust denier. It happened before
How
and
is that
after
Holocaust
the war,
denial?
and during. Because you're saying that the Stalin just killed all the Tatars and the Soviet the
Well,
Nazi
he killed
Germany,
half of them and deported the other ones.
Nazi Germany didn't treat them as harshly. That's,
Yeah, well, they didn't deport them.
historical. Oh, okay, you're not deported. You're put in a slave camp and you're worked to death. You're killed.
Were the
you're
Tatars
shot.
in fucking... Okay,
Oh,
they weren't...
wow, I'm fucking deported. What's the fucking difference?
Was the Tatars...
I think the Tatar population might have actually been recruited into like the Nazi kind of like slave labor system. It was very vast. They did everything to get laborers. They might have. I actually don't know specifically about the Tatars though.
That's right.
To be clear, the kind of like laboring system is also is distinctly different than like the death camp system, where they would basically force everybody to get into some like semi-auxiliary force to like kind of do engineering work, dig trenches or do whatever, like construct buildings or whatever necessary for the Nazi war effort.
50% under the
tell
Nazis?
me the difference
No, it
between,
wasn't.
tell me the difference between dying of starvation and just being worked to death.
Again, the Tatar death rate wasn't fucking fit. The Tatar population didn't get cut in half by the Nazis.
Is being enslaved.
You can look at the data if you want. The Tatar population didn't get cut in half by the... That's okay, you don't have an answer, it's fine.
I like that you're deflecting to fucking Tatar and ethnic minorities in the Soviet Union.
I wasn't deflecting, I just brought it up. That's not
You can't handle the fact that Nazi Germany got resources from Western Europe.
I would still say that Nazis on the whole were worse. I'm just talking for one specific group because it's funny that you can't own the fact that Stalin was worse for the Tatars than the Nazis
Who
were.
are you talking to? That's not a response to what I said. You can't acknowledge and say that the Molotov-Ribbentrop happened because of the pacts and the resources that Western Europe gave to Nazi Germany. It wouldn't have happened.
Do you agree with the pact? Do you think it was the right thing to do?
Oh snap, Pisco's involved. Dude, I don't know if I want to sit through Pisco also being here. I don't know if I can do that.
Yeah, the alternative being invaded, yeah, sure, because Poland was hostile to Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union, and the alternative would be just giving the entirety of Poland to Nazi Germany.
Or you could also declare war on Nazi Germany with the UK and France under the understanding that the Nazis were a large enough threat that even if they disagree with the specifics, then the main focus should be fighting against the Nazis.
By not occupying.
Even if they disagreed about like splitting up Poland and stuff like that, Adolf Hitler and the Nazis and their war of annihilation was much bigger of a threat than, you know, the Polish government was the Soviets.
Whoa, wait. Giving them, I thought you were saying that they were just going to split it on the off chance that somebody happens to invade it. Now you're making it sound a lot more intentional. Sounds like you're making it a lot more intentional now than it was earlier.
What the fuck are you talking about? I didn't say give in the agreement. I said that without the agreement they would be giving that, right? Because they wouldn't be occupying.
I thought that one of the premises of your argument was that it wasn't foreseeable at the time the pact was executed that there would be an invasion of Poland. That was not a foregone conclusion.
Yeah, you said that was just like incidental.
I never said that. No, I never said that.
Was it a foregone conclusion or not?
It wasn't. I never said that it wasn't foreseeable. I literally said
was
that
it a foregone conclusion or not?
The invasion of Poland by Nazi Germany and invasion of the Soviet Union by Nazi Germany was inevitable, right?
It was inevitable. Was it inevitable? Was it known to the parties who were party to the pact that it was inevitable that Poland be invaded?
Specifically, no, it wasn't an agreement to invade Poland. But
So-
they knew that Nazi Germany would eventually do it. Yeah.
Okay, so they did know it was inevitable. Did they or did they not know it was inevitable?
I just answered. They did know that it was inevitable. Yes.
You agree then, by your own words, that the Soviet Union signed onto that pact with the full knowledge that it was inevitable that Poland was going to be invaded by Germany.
Oof. Yikes.
Yeah.
Major walk back. Wow.
What am I?
Poland is Poland. I just referred to Destiny as Poland. Destiny is Poland now. Destiny's just having fun. He doesn't give a fuck anymore. He checked out of this conversation when he hung up on him the first time. He's been done. It's just for everybody else now.
Welcome back. Where's the? What
Well,
the fuck
because earlier you made it sound like, oh, well, they didn't actually know if it'd be invaded or not. That's just if there happened to be conflict that broke out, there would be borders agreed upon. But now you're making it sound like, oh no, they basically knew that it would be invaded, and when they made that pact, they wanted to differentiate the borders for it. Yeah.
That's not.
Oof.
Yeah, you don't have. You
Oh
can,
my God.
somehow- someone can go back on the VOD.
I'm cringing right now.
I didn't say that.
Once in
they-
chat
they
if he said
signed-
that.
They signed because they didn't know war was happening. That's retarded.
And to be clear, you agree with them. You agree with the pact. You
Okay,
think that
you're
was
gonna
an ethical thing to do?
ethical. I don't.
Is it the
think
right
of that.
thing for?
That's,
He doesn't
Is it the
consider
right?
ethics.
You're not
that's-
thinking
that's
about ethics.
retarded. It was a pact
Conversation
moral.
about it?
It's some fucking liberal shit.
Do you okay? Sorry. Do you agree? Do you agree with however you want to define agree? Do you agree with Soviet Union's position to sign the pact as opposed to not signing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, the question is
Yeah,
before,
shut the fuck up. I'm answering his question. Shut the fuck up.
You said
Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. Yeah, it's not a yes or no for me. I'm gonna elaborate.
Oh, you're
Yes. I
You're
agree
gonna
with it
elaborate
because-
or liberate
because-
like the
because-
Soviet
I
Union
thought
did?
you could. I thought you
Yeah,
could just
thank
cut
you.
people off when they
Yeah.
were one word into an answer. Because that's
yeah,
all you
shut the
do.
fuck up. I'm answering Discord.
One-sided.
Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. Because the alternative would be to have Nazi Germany on their borders and just be invaded because they wouldn't have a non-aggression pact
Why couldn't they have just declared war on Nazi Germany with everyone else?
with Nazi Germany, right? They would just be invaded.
So that to be clear, do you agree with Britain's guarantee of Poland? Do you think that Britain and France should have just let Poland be invaded by Nazi, or do you think they did the right thing in guaranteeing Poland their sovereignty?
What are you referring to?
Do you think that the Western powers were correct in taking a stand at Poland?
To not let? Are you referring to the anti-Nazi military?
Do you
alliance? They
agree with the
didn't want-
declaration of war against Germany for
Yeah,
their invasion
yes.
of Poland?
Yes.
Well, I guess I don't understand. So, is there any moral equivalent? Is there a moral equivalence between standing up to Germany invading Poland and abiding by it and profiting from it? How do you square that?
Can you repeat the question again?
How do you
you're bringing fucking morality to?
How do you
you're bringing fucking
square?
morality
How
to
do you
discussion.
square your support? However you want to define your support. How do you
Damn, I don't know if he's just like he's delaying time to think over it, or if he really just can't comprehend the question. I mean, it's been said 3 times. It's pretty basic.
square your support for the British declaration of war against Germany for their invasion
Somebody in gutter chat says he doesn't know how World War II started. That'd be really funny.
of Poland, with your support of the Soviet annexation of large quantities of Poland? How do you square those?
Because we know that Germany would take the territory anyway, and they would invade the Soviet Union. We know this because when the Soviet Union invaded Poland to take that territory that was in the secret protocol, the troops that were in the east, the eastern border with the Soviet Union, they retreated to fight in the Western Front against the.
Wouldn't it have been better if
division of Nazi Germany.
wouldn't it have been better for the
My point
Soviets
is
to
that,
declare war
point is
with the
that
West?
they got rolled anyway. They got rolled by Nazi Germany.
Wouldn't it have been better
What?
for the Soviet Union between the two options, the Ribbentrop Pact and the and declaring war in response to an inevitable annexation, as you say, of Poland?
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't it have been better for the Soviet Union? Wouldn't you have supported them more if, rather than not declare war on Germany in response to an invasion of Poland, that they declare war in response to an invasion of Poland?
If that was the case, yeah, but you're assuming that France, Britain, etc., would declare war against Nazi Germany.
Well, let them.
Well, they did, and then you just follow suit. After they declare war, he declares war. But do you think we're gonna care if, like, it was like, oh no, he went back on his agreement with Hitler? What a disappointment! Like, just declare war along with everybody else.
Scenario.
Right.
The issue here is that without, in this scenario, without Molotov-Ribbentrop, without a non-aggression pact, France, Italy, Britain, Lithuania, etc., all had non-aggression pacts with Nazi Germany, right? So they can just let Poland get rolled. And,
France was not going to let Poland get rolled, and the United Kingdom was not going to let Poland get rolled. That's part of the reason why they kept telling the Poles to negotiate. They weren't going to concede on like more territory from Poland. Hitler wanted a war with Poland, and once they invaded Poland, they declared war. I don't know what he's talking about.
and after that, the Soviet Union get rolled.
I don't understand.
Because
I thought we're not taking a Captain Hindsight approach. And so at the time, are you suggesting...
you're asking me, wouldn't it be better if they didn't have Molotov-Ribbentrop and then declared war? But if they didn't have Molotov-Ribbentrop, Britain, I don't believe Britain would declare war.
So it's your
Poland,
position...
because they had a non-aggression pact with Nazi Germany. They had military treaties with Nazi Germany, right?
So it's your position. It's your position that the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact was essential to Britain's and the West's declaration of war against Germany. That without that pact, without that,
it would be. I think it would be way less likely to have a declaration of war. Yeah, I'm not going to say 0% because I'm not retarded. I'm not going to.
Why didn't the Soviets just agree to let Poland keep its sovereignty when they were negotiating with the UK and France?
Ooh.
What?
Those negotiations part of the reason those negotiations ended. First of all, because the Soviets were negotiating with both the Allies and with Germany at the same time.
Oh yeah, that's another thing that he didn't bring up. Part of the reason why the negotiations between the Soviets and the Allies fell through is the Allies were like, "You're negotiating with the Nazis right now. We don't trust you. We don't trust your commitment to this alliance if you're also having these backroom meetings with Hitler," which were real, by the way, as we found out through the secret protocols, as the Soviets aided Nazi Germany in their invasion of Poland, and then invaded Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania.
But
why didn't
those negotiations were not fully closed. They were partly closed by the Soviets because they chose the Nazis, because the Nazis didn't keep Poland off the table.
Why did Poland take territory from the Soviet Union?
What?
Why?
That seems like a deflection.
No, it's not a deflection.
That's not what I asked you.
Why didn't they recognize Poland's sovereignty? Poland didn't recognize the Soviet Union's sovereignty, right? That's.
What do you mean the Soviet Union's sovereignty?
They invaded the Soviet Union during the.
The big wedge between the negotiations between the Soviets and France and the UK.
And they fled to Poland. Then they what?
In the Russian Revolution? What, in the Civil War in the 20s?
They took land from the Soviet Union during the Soviet-Polish War.
Does that mean that Poland is an illegitimate state at that time?
No, it means that some of the land that was taken by the Soviet Union on Molotov-Ribbentrop was of the Soviet Union.
Of what consequence is that to the ultimate, determination of your support one way or the other? So if Poland I just want to be clear. If Poland
be clear, it was okay, but this sounds like a justification for basically the Soviet Union to say, unless you allow me to conquer Poland, because parts of Poland used to be part of the Russian Empire, which is a silly justification. But nonetheless, we're going to allow Hitler to run wild in Europe, and we'll give him the supplies to do it. Unless you give us Poland. It's a crazy gambit, which didn't work.
Had not, quote, taken that land in the 20s, would the pact have been unjustified?
I believe so, yeah.
So the only reason it is justified, the only reason the pact, I just want to be clear, the only reason the pact is
just
justified,
a fucking yes or no.
Well, the only reason the pact is, well, you just said it's a but for, right? So if they hadn't taken that land, the pact would have been unjustified. So
there's parts of Mexico today that used to be part of the United States, but we sold it back to them. Could you imagine? There's like a warlord going through all of South America, conquering country after country after country, and South America's like, America, you have a lot of sway, a big army. Could you please stop? And we're like, okay, but how about you give us half of Mexico? Of course, they wouldn't accept that deal.
the only reason the pact is justified is because Poland in the 20s.
I'm not gonna say it's really fucking annoying. Yeah, I would prefer just Lunderbox. You're really fucking annoying. I'm never gonna say. I'm never gonna say that It is the only reason that it justifies it. It's
No, but it did a
perfect
but
fact.
That's why the Soviets preferred Molotov-Ribbentrop, right? Because it gave them the right to fuck
of course.
Poland.
But what I'm saying is that the reason it happened is because
They could have just not fucked
Wait,
Poland.
you just said something incredible. You just said something incredible. You said it would have been unjustified. You said it would have been unjustified for
I wouldn't
Soviet
support this.
Union.
Yeah, I would.
But the question is why?
Looking back, I would say,
Why would you not support it?
because it would be better to use Poland to negotiate with them and use that potential alliance to get the rest of the
But I don't
countries to
understand.
agree on
You're
that.
the one who's saying that Germany, their invasion.
Yeah,
is
you can't
inevitable.
understand
Wait,
because you don't let me.
I just want to finish this point.
You don't let me answer the question.
Wait, I have an active
It
point
would be
to
better
make.
to.
No, it's not a question. It's an active
Listen to
point.
me. If they had Poland as an ally of the Soviet Union, they wouldn't have the issue of not wanting Soviet troops through Poland to have the military alliance against Nazi Germany with France and Britain, right?
I just want to make a point here. So I see a contradiction, which is your justification for the pact in the first place was buying time. Buying time for the Soviets.
Industrialization.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what you just said, why isn't that rationale dispositive? When I say dispositive, I mean why doesn't it control your answer in the case of the hypothetical where Poland had never sequestered those lands from the Russian Empire in the first place? That's still that rationale of buying time is still present.
The Soviet Union, not the Russian Empire.
So that rationale of buying time is still present whether or not Poland had taken those lands.
Absolutely.
And so my question
Because,
is, why doesn't that rule the day?
I see. It could also happen to buy time, but I'm saying that it would be way more efficient if they had Poland as an ally, or at least not hostile like they had it.
If it's efficient, excuse me. If it's efficient,
thank you. More questions.
If it's efficient,
More questions.
So if it's efficient when Poland is reduced in size significantly, surely it's efficient when they're larger.
That's not true. They didn't take a vast. They didn't take the majority of Poland wasn't the land they took from the Ukrainian Republic, right?
That doesn't matter.
It does matter.
Well, they shouldn't have been in control of the Ukrainian Republic to begin with anyway.
That's the premise of what you just said.
No. So the fact that it is not smaller, right? So the fact that it's smaller at all, surely any kind of efficiency gains by having an alliance with Poland to counteract Germany would be just as, if not more, present in the case in which Poland has extra land and territory. If it's an extra 2 square miles, or if it's an extra 1,000 square miles.
I'm not saying the land itself gives them the advantage. If you missed the start of this conversation, Lonerbox brought up that Poland didn't want the Red Army going through Poland, right? For that military alliance between France, Britain, and the Soviet Union against Nazi Germany. If Poland was an ally, or at least not hostile towards the Soviet Union, if they had some decent relationship, they wouldn't have that problem. So it would be now a question between Molotov-Ribbentrop, which would be buying time, and this military alliance, which would be buying time, and also like a major help against Nazi Germany, right? For the security of Poland and.
Okay, so if I'm understanding you correctly, what you're saying is that
Wait, did he just say it was for the security of
this
Poland?
military alliance, which would be buying time, and also like a major help against Nazi Germany, right? For the security of Poland.
Okay, so if they were to fight with the Polish, it'd be for the security of Poland. Okay.
And.
Okay, so if I'm understanding you correctly, what you're saying is that a possible alliance between Poland and the Soviet Union in the situation in which the land was taken is just untenable because the relations are so bad. And in that situation, that it would never occur, it would never happen because the land itself created some irreconcilable difference.
Not the land. No, not the. Sorry,
the sequestering of the land, taking the land.
You're obsessed with saying land. I'm explicitly saying that it's not about the land. It's about.
It is. Wait, sorry. It's about the land.
No, it's not. Sorry, it's not. Sorry.
Oh my
it's
God!
About the
it is.
Somebody shut him up, please.
No, it's not. It's about the relationship between
Can't
the
take it
Polish state
anymore.
and the Soviet state, right?
I can't.
By
That's
reference
what
to
I'm saying.
agreements.
I'm not saying that the land itself stops the possible military
No,
alliance.
of course that's not what I mean. Of course that's not what I mean. Of course what I mean is the land and how it matters to the individuals and the actors. And of course I'm not simply saying that what was making the potential alliance between Poland and Soviet Union irreconcilable was the land in a kind of cosmic sense, but the land as it meant something to people who mattered at the time. So my only question is that how you're trying to frame this? That the reason why you're against the pact in the context of Poland not having taken those lands is because there's a strategic possibility of an alliance in that situation that isn't possible in the first situation.
Yeah, and we can verify this by looking at why the military agreement, the military alliance against Nazi Germany didn't happen. Because
Okay, I'm done. I can't listen anymore. I give up. I tap out in an hour and 11 minutes in. This is 3.5 hours. I'm done. The guy just felt obtuse. The guy just felt like he wanted to pick a fight. He wanted to disagree. It felt like just he needed to justify the Soviet Union and Joseph Stalin's actions and say it was all hindsight, even though at the time multiple communist groups around the world who would have typically been aligned with the Soviet Union condemned the Soviet Union for this move and knew it would bite them in the ass in the long run. You do not need to be Captain Hindsight to know that signing an agreement where you get to carve up territories like colonies with all their own independent peoples who want their own countries, carve it up with the Nazis, and then assist them through giving them material that they then use to fund their war machine to then kill people in Africa, in France, in the Netherlands, in Belgium, in Denmark, in Norway, and all across the European continent. Yugoslavia, Greece. Terrible, terrible decision by Stalin from a terrible, terrible person. Anyway, that's enough of this.